Before all the mainstream first-person shooters hooked me with their fast-paced, twitchy gameplay, for the early years of my life I was an avid fan of racing games. More so arcade racing games than the simulation ones, but I just like driving the cars around and seeing all the potential customization options they had available to them. But out of the many early 2000 racing games I played, Midnight Club 2 is my personal favorite, and it still holds up as a fun, deep, and honestly difficult racing game. The controls are fairly simple, and the cars are all so unique in both visual appeal as well as performance. There really aren't two cars in the game that behave the same way when you drive them. Obviously, early game cars are slow and late game cars are fast, but some prefer long straightaways that allow you to push its power to the max, while others might not be the fastest, but with how complex and intricate the worlds you visit are, having more ability to turn and outmaneuver other opponents' cars can really come in clutch in the end. One of the reasons why I appreciate and enjoy Midnight Club 2, and honestly the whole series, is that races aren't forced tracks with only one way to go around them. Instead, it takes place in one of three locations in the game: Los Angeles, Paris, and Tokyo, where if it's an ordered race, you have to hit the checkpoints in a certain order. However, how you go about getting to each checkpoint is up to you. That level of freedom you have at your disposal to find the most optimized, the least traffic, or the most unusual path makes every race exciting and interesting. And it allows potential follow-up playthroughs to be different. You can go a different way or use a different car. Each region you go to has a variety of races that you need to beat, taking anywhere from 2 of upwards up to 6 races. Each one has their own car, theme, and appearance. Honestly, one of the aspects of the game that hasn't aged so well are in fact the character models. Like when you look at them, some are totally okay and others are definitely a relic of their time. It's so minor in the grand scheme of things it doesn't really matter, but it's definitely something worth mentioning. The music in this game is really superb as well. Each city has its own catalog of music, and each song is usually tied to a racer you need to beat, fundamentally making it their theme, if that makes sense. Some songs are better than others, but they all fit to their respective racers very well, especially the final boss of the game, Savo. I'll get to talking about him in a moment, but his song is intense. It gets your heart pumping and makes an already stressful situation even worse as his song berates your ears with how heavy it goes on the dubstep. I mean, listen to this chorus. Yeah, not every song is like that, but this is an exception, and honestly one of the best pieces of music in this game, for sure. There are 2 main types of races, with a few others sprinkled in the game: ordered and unordered. As their name suggests, ordered races are your traditional get to each checkpoint in the correct order however you choose to get there. Unordered is where you need to hit all the checkpoints before you finish, but you can tackle it in any order you want. These can be some of the most interesting races because you're both free to get to the points how you like, but which ones you hit first is also up to you. That level of freedom in a racing game of all genres is seriously appreciated in the grand scheme of things. Now, there are some other races, like having to get from one side of the city to the other and back before time runs out, or even when you have to race as a police car and take out other drivers, but these are used so rarely you'll probably forget about them once they're beaten. They're fairly easy and pretty straightforward, nothing to write home about. Difficulty is something that is kind of unique in this game. Midnight Club 3 and even LA had some challenging races and bosses, but once you get to the later third of this game, the difficulty can kind of take a sharp turn, which I actually like. Tokyo is the final city you race in, and is definitely the most complex in terms of the layout, and where shortcuts and easier routes are located. Memorizing the city like the back of your hand from each of your previous races can really be a boon to help you in the final races of the game. Each city has a champion that needs to be beaten before you move to the next one, and once you beat the Tokyo champion, the only place left to go is up, the world champion. This dude is one of the most savage final bosses from a racing game I've ever had the pleasure of hearing his disses across 6 races total, 2 from each city. I am not kidding. For anyone who has played this game, you know how ridiculous this dude's roasts are, and you hear them for probably about a total of a half hour worth of racing, assuming you can all one-shot the races, because his third race, the first one in Paris, is my personal most difficult race I've ever had to beat in a racing game. It is an unordered race across Paris, with 4 total checkpoints before you finish. The problem is, everyone is using the last car you can unlock, and you're not, so they're faster. The speed difference is fairly marginal, but Savo's car is more nimble and has an extra can of nitrous for 5 total. On top of that, the traffic is set to the highest setting, making every single bump feel like a losing battle. Seriously, back in the day, the number of times I had to reset and try again to beat this piece of shit as he mocks you through the entire time is unsettling. Easily the hardest race in a game that I've played by a mile. And there are a couple of other races in the game that trip me up even to this day, but generally the first half of the game is pretty straightforward. There's also a ton of stuff to do besides like the main story. You can race AI in a variety of custom modes that are different from the story ones, and there's also different races that are separate from the campaign ones. They have special modes like capture the flag, knockout, carry the bomb, and you can even make your own races in an editor which the game provides. Although one personal gripe about the editor is depending on if you have AI opponents in your race or not, the number of choices you have to put down points is less than if you were racing by yourself. If you do race solo, the amount of freedom you have to create a more intricate and complex race is higher, being able to put checkpoints down in places you normally can't. It sucks, and I imagine it's because of AI issues that they wouldn't be able to figure out where the hell they're going, but it's nice to have those things regardless, even if they don't work and you have to do it by yourself. Midnight Club 2 is a classic arcade racing game from my past that I still mess around with to this day. Sadly, there was a PC version on Steam, but to my knowledge, and at least looking as if it's a listing, it's not there anymore. I remember buying it for like $2 back on Steam when I was in school, because I was like, why not? It's a great game. And I'm glad I did before they took it off. Everyone has different tastes when it comes to racing games, but I would highly recommend this game if you've never played it or you really want a good nostalgia and fun. It's easy to play, it's hard to master, but at the end of the day, it's a challenging arcade racer at its core, which I appreciate. Thank you for taking the time out of your day to watch this video, and I hope to see you in future ones.